What's happening, everybody? This is V3Cast, episode 32. All right, and a happy
coming right at you.
All right, it's the beginning of the year. It's time for renewed motivations. It's time for new quests, and it's time to talk about what y'all are drinking. First time of the year, first drink of the year. What you got? Something fancy? Something old school?
I have a spicy margarita. It's not just a margarita. It's spicy too.
Ooh, spicy.
I love hot stuff. So this very much appeals to me. And it's really good. It's got a nice kick to it, you know?
Oh, I dig it.
What kind of hot sauce did you put in that?
No, it's a mix. It comes like that. It's like 1800. It's, you know, I'm not fancy enough to actually make my own stuff from scratch like Jill does. I just get the bottle and it's like spicy margarita with the tequila included. So I don't have to do anything but pour it.
Now, do you see? I notice a trend here, Greg. Do you notice this trend? In episode 31, when we were at the restaurant, Mexican Town, what did Aaron have to drink? A margarita. Yep. So now he's got it again. He wasn't even probably planning that because that was several months ago when we were actually at that restaurant. But of course, the episode came out in episode 31 that talked about that time. But Aaron, 2 in a row margaritas. I dig your theme.
It's the taste of summer, bringing it into the winter. You know, I'm fighting winter with the margarita.
It's funny that Aaron said margarita, but I heard Bloody Mary. That's what I thought he was drinking. And that's why I asked about hot sauce. I've never even heard of a spicy margarita. What the hell is that even?
I just thought
I'm so confused now.
Spice to anything, can't you?
You can make anything spicy.
You know, I wouldn't add spice.
Yeah, but to make it spicy right out of the bottle, like, yeah, you can make anything spicy, but like, I can't believe that 1800 makes a spicy margarita. Like, I just, my brain just said it was a Bloody Mary. I ignored what you said completely.
Right. And ignored the color and everything. I blew your mind.
Yeah, I couldn't even really see it. So I blame this meeting, video for that. But
right.
You better hold it up. Let me look at that real quick. I want to see what a spicy margarita looks like. Real good. Hold it up high. Yeah, there you go. See, now I can. What is there? Something red in there?
No, that's the light here.
Oh, okay.
Light. Yeah.
I guess
red peppers floating.
You see it's in the WDET glass, right?
That's right. Yeah, we love WDET for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been very kind to us, as a matter of fact. Like way back when Doom Fortress came out, they premiered the first track off of Doom Fortress, which is called El Guantonero, which you made a music video for too. They played it first, aired on anywhere in the world, WDET. So thank you.
There you go. I didn't know that. I mean, I knew it, but I forgot it.
Right.
And let's not forget that Doom Fortress came out 10 years ago. Like, not exact. I think we were recording it right at this very moment.
No, that's true. That is true. Let's hear it for Doom Fortress. All right. 10 years. Yeah. I think it's, is it July or is it August? I'll check.
We somehow forgot to mention during a whole last year of 2023 that it was the 10th year of the band in general. We just didn't even.
That's because we're so busy working, man.
Right.
It's crazy. We got records coming, recordings, all kind of stuff. So
in retrospect, give it up for 10 years of Voyager 3.
10 years of Voyager 3.
Yeah. Right. From 13 to 23, we did it.
That's right, man. And a lot of albums already out and more on the way. So that's very cool. Greg,
what are you drinking, Greg?
We just got through the holidays. So, as you know, part of my family, extended family, lives on the west side of Michigan. So we traveled out there, and every time I'm out there, I try to get something from that part of town. So this brewery is from Petoskey, Michigan, and It's called Beards.
Nice.
And Beards Brewery, and this let me turn it around for the name of the brew. See if you can read that.
Green Hundo. Like $100 bill.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what I think of it. Yeah.
So it's an IPA, and obviously, and it's actually like surprisingly good. Because
Nice.
I'm pretty picky about IPAs, and I was telling somebody over the weekend when I was out there that a lot of times, like, I'm afraid to take chances on new IPAs because there's like this magical combination that I'm always looking for. It has to be the right amount of carbonation and then like as bitter as humanly possible.
Yeah.
So like if it's lacking in either of those areas, like, a lot of times I'll get an IPA that's really, really hoppy and really bitter, but it's sort of flat. And then I'm like bummed out. I'm like, all right, well, that's not very good.
Yeah.
And and then the opposite is true. Like you can get one that's really, really carbonated, but it doesn't have any of that bitterness. But this one is super well balanced. What did we call it? Green Hundo? Is that what it's called? Green Hundo?
So is what you're trying to tell us is that the hop bitterness level and the fizzy carbonated level, 10 out of 10. Is that what you're trying to tell us?
It's perfectly balanced.
But is it 10 out of 10?
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
All right.
10 out of 10.
All right. What are you drinking, Steve?
All right.
Yeah, don't keep us in suspense, Steve.
Yeah.
Oh, no suspense. I'll come clean right here. So, but this is going to kind of combine what are you drinking with mailbag, and I'll tell you why right now is because people who have watched this podcast and listened to this podcast sometimes remember that we'll mention one of our fans and friends, Funky Cole Patina. He'll chime in sometimes on the comments or on Facebook or things like that. So a really cool and moving thing that I noticed is we also follow each other on Instagram. So one day I'm scrolling and I come across a post of his, and he's talking about something to the effect, this is several months ago, so my memory might not be 100% accurate, but he's saying something like, hey, in a few weeks I get to hear in stereo again for the first time in 25 years or something like that. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell are you talking about? And then you look at the pictures, and I'm kind of ignorant to it, so I don't really know the terminology or whatever, but they're kind of implants that get planted behind your ear on your head on both sides, and they aid in your hearing. It's more than a hearing aid is what I'm kind of gathering.
Is it a cochlear implant?
That could be. Be. Do those have like little plates like go on the back of your head behind your ear kind of thing?
Probably.
Yeah. Well, he's got these things now. And when I saw that, I don't know, man, it almost moved me to tears because I'm thinking to myself, could you imagine not being able for the longest time to hear good or at all or whatever, just, it being not what we're used to, right? So for him to get that back, I think is amazing. And I love how technology is making people's lives better all across the board, various aspects of life. So I wrote him and I said, holy shit, man, this is amazing. I can't believe that you're able to, get this hearing situation fixed for so many years. So I'm sending you some records because I want you to hear some stuff in stereo. I want to be part of, your adventure back into stereo. So we sent him New York Ninja. I think I sent him my Distant Transmissions Hawaii Kona Hawaii album and a couple T-shirts and just stickers, just a little cool care package. So he said, well, dude, I got to send you something. And I'm like, you don't got to send me anything, man. For real. And congratulations on all this stuff. And I hope everything goes great. But he sent something anyway. And that's my What Are You Drinking? So everybody knows I love me some ginger beer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is from, oh, by the way, Funky Cole Patina lives in Australia, in case that wasn't mentioned ever in the previous episode. So this is called Bickford's ginger beer flavored cordial. So what it is it's not actually ginger beer. You can think of it as a ginger beer concentrate. You can't drink this. This is like a syrup or something that's very strong. So
it's not like that thing that Aaron bought where it's pre-mixed and just ready to go.
Right.
You actually have to like put some effort into it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what you do is you get yourself some club soda. I hope it doesn't explode on me because club soda can be naughty. Y'all know that. Oh dear.
I hope you don't. Oh boy. I hope you don't have any clowns in the house that shook that seltzer bottle up.
Okay, check it out. You add yourself some club soda because you got to have the bubbles. I suppose you could add this to anything, right? But I like my ginger beer with fizz in it. So club soda it is. Then you bust out. Let me give this one little Red Bull shake. See, can you guys see the ring here?
Yeah.
It's all so natural that it settles and it gets that stuff in it. So you got to give this just a little bit of a shake to get all the nice ginger stuff that usually settles. By the way, you should do that to a normal ginger beer that's processed and everything like in a can and all ready to go. You should give it a light shake. So here we go.
Steve, what's the science here? Are you just eyeballing this?
Yes.
That's a concentrate you're dealing with.
The science to me is like how I eat my sushi and I put extra wasabi that I know is going to whoop my ass and I do it on purpose. And the next time I add a little bit more. That's the science. Can I get an amen?
Yes. Good science.
Yes.
What happens if you drink pure concentrate? Steve,
I might try that just a little.
Steve would do it.
Do it on the air. I mean, we're content creators, Steve.
Ooh, man, that's so good.
Don't do it in private.
The more you add, obviously, the hotter it gets. Okay, I'll do it. I'm not
take a swig right out the bottle, man. Stop messing around.
Don't you need some ice?
Oh, by the way, check it out. No, because the club soda's cold. I got it right out of the fridge. Bickford's. Can you see that date? Since 1874, they've been making ginger beer down in Australia. Come on.
That one in that bottle isn't from 1874, though, right?
Hey, you know what? It was a good year.
Let's see what happens to Steve if he drinks it straight out the bottle.
It's good. It's syrupy and sweet. Not too much heat.
All right, so it's a mixer.
And congratulations to Funky Cold Patina for getting his hearing back, his full spectrum hearing.
Yeah, man, that's got to be just
for real.
Beyond words, amazing.
I think that if you're hearing in stereo for the first time in a long time or forever, I think that Voyager 3 is a good band to listen to in stereo because we take advantage of the stereo phonic function. Now, even better than us though would be maybe Pink Floyd. That would be a good one. The Beatles.
Tangerine Dream.
Tangerine Dream. Who else would you really want to hear in stereo if you haven't heard in stereo for a long time?
Look, I would say like a lot of soundtracks, with like a full orchestra, like hearing a full orchestra in stereo, there's something to be said for that,
Oh yeah,
like
man.
especially when it's recorded correctly.
Oh, yes, for sure. Here's another one too. Rush, Moving Pictures. I listened to that the other day, and I was obviously I've listened to that album a lot, but I was marveling at the sound of the album, the production.
It's ridiculous. It's one of the best produced. I mean, it's like Michael Jackson Thriller. You ever really sit down and listen to Thriller? It's beautiful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like the most spectacularly mixed, perfect like sounding record, and Moving Pictures is in the same category.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd really taken the time to notice it specifically right from the beginning with Tom Sawyer with that nice drop of that synth note. That's a beautiful sounding album. So listen to that one, Funky Cold Patina, if you haven't already. You probably have though, but listen to it.
He has impeccable taste, so I would not doubt for a minute that most of those things are either already crossed off on his list or on the list coming up for sure. All right. Well, you know what? Speaking of music is a huge part of our life and a huge part of the lives of a lot of people who listen and watch this podcast. So I thought of a cool topic for today's episode 32, and I'm calling it Musical Roots. So I want to hear from first you guys, and then, of course, in the comments, we'd like to hear from our listeners. But give me your top 3 musicians that made you want to play your instrument. Let's talk about it, fellas. How about you?
Who's going first? Me?
Aaron, yeah, I'm putting the spotlight on you.
All right. So I had to do some thinking about this because it can be interpreted in different ways, different times, different phases or whatever. So as far as me starting to play my instrument, when I was a little kid and I saw guitar, I saw it on MTV, of course, or music videos in general. What I wanted to be was like those people in the videos. So that kind of covered a lot of people on TV, bringing that sort of look of the electric guitar into the homes of kids across the world, right? So the funny thing is, like, I was trying to distill it down to who, there were a lot of people out there playing guitar, of course, but in my little kid head, I think one of the coolest bands and one of the coolest looks for me was Huey Lewis and the News. And I didn't even know the guitarists' names until I had to look it up the other day because I only knew Huey, right? So Chris Hayes on lead and Johnny Kala on rhythm. I wanted to give them some respect because for me, they were two of my earliest examples of like what the guitar looks like, what a guitarist looks like, what a band looks like being cool, being like a little team, like a group of cool renegade guys who are out there,
going city to city,
city to city with like their cool hair and the sunglasses and ties. And that was what stood out to me. Now, when it comes to actually starting to play guitar, my dad wanted me to play and he got me an acoustic guitar. That was not what I saw.
By the way, let me put a little asterisk on that. Not only was it an acoustic guitar, but it was a classical guitar with nylon strings. That's probably
the nylon strings
thing to play starting out. Like, how difficult is that? So it's a big hurdle for you to get past that and not go like, I don't want to do this anymore.
That's exactly what happened. I didn't want to play. I didn't like it. It wasn't what I saw on MTV. Didn't sound anything like that. It wasn't a cool electric guitar. I didn't even know what an electric guitar felt like. I didn't even know really how big they were or anything like that. Until the first time I saw one in person was I was up at summer camp, and I saw some people like Cam Floyd playing bass and Mike Borgsort playing guitar, and so that was when I was able to finally see what an electric guitar even looks like, and it looked like a toy to me compared to an acoustic because it's all big and boxy and made out of wood. And then you see this guitar that looks like it could be made out of plastic or something because it's bright red and white and stuff like that. Anyway, so I didn't even want to play that acoustic. And I had to wait from age 8 to age 15 to get my first electric guitar. That's a long time, especially for a kid. That's a whole lifetime. And if we hadn't started our band, I would have not kept playing. I had no real interest in playing acoustic and playing like This Land Is Your Land and Shoe Fly Don't Bother Me. That stuff didn't appeal to me. It wasn't what I signed up for. So if we hadn't started the band at age 13, 14, I would have stopped playing guitar. So that brings me to part 2. The impetus for starting the band was Dead Kennedys, Misfits and stuff too, other punk bands, punk rock in general, right? But the Dead Kennedys were what that night at our aunt's wedding reception made Steve and me go, that's what we should do right there. Not that we were trying to sound like Dead Kennedys, because we didn't even know how to do that then. We didn't even understand exactly how they were playing. I didn't really understand the way East Bay Ray played, but I knew, I appreciate him way more now. So I don't even know if I would say he himself was my inspiration to play guitar, but the band. And, so that's what made me want to play, right? Now, so then we could figure out stuff like Misfits and stuff. And, cause that was so simple. In a way though, to be honest, that kind of stunted my musical growth because as a 14-year-old, I felt like I'd learned everything I needed to know. I knew how to do a bar chord, and I said, the Misfits are doing this. That's all I need. And that was how I thought for years and years and years. And I never really pushed myself to become a better guitarist. So then, flash forward again, throughout Forge, throughout Decibel and all that. When we had the idea to start this band, and I knew that I wasn't going to be the singer guitarist, I was just going to play guitar. I knew that I had to become a better guitarist, and I had to push myself and to be a little more creative, a little more innovative, because I didn't have the singing to sort of hide behind. We didn't have another guitarist in the band like we've had in the past that they could do the heavy lifting and I could just play some rhythm stuff. So the idea was to be the guitarist in a band like this, it's doing this weird synth rock stuff. I have to be able to figure out where I fit in. So my mind at that point went to David Gilmour, and I thought, if I can get some of that vibe, some of that weird spacey / bluesy kind of vibe and that atmosphere that he creates in Pink Floyd, if I could get if I could bite just a little piece of that off, then I would be getting towards the idea of doing my job in this band. So that's what brings me, I guess, to today, and combining all those things that, started me and that I kind of found my way through music, and to be my goal is to always be like a little bit better than I was last year. So yeah, those are my three musicians or bands that made me want to play my instrument and made me want to push myself and create.
Good list of influences for sure. Definitely ones that set bars and influenced a lot of people. So that's awesome. Greg, how about you, man?
Well, Aaron's was really well thought out, and he had a lot of detail there. My answer is simple, and everybody already knows it. Like there aren't even three. It's one guy, Peter Criss. It's the only reason I ever wanted to play drums. And I can tell you that in 5th grade, they start handing out instruments at school, right? And everybody, maybe I've told this story before, but they're handing out instruments at school, and I'm looking around at like what they have to offer, and I'm like, nobody in KISS plays that clarinet. Right. Nobody in KISS plays a flute. Nobody in KISS plays that baritone sax, or and I just went down the list, and I'm like, none of these things are in KISS, like none of them. But then I got to the snare drum, and I was like, now wait a minute. Peter Criss has a snare drum. I know he has that. Like, I at least know that.
Yeah, now you're on to something.
I go, so that's for me right there. Yeah. So I'll never forget, my mom bought me the starter drum kit, like that you get. It comes in like a plastic case. It's a snare drum with like a really, really terrible snare stand. Like that thing would tip over like if the wind blew wrong, on it. It was really chintzy, and like
did it come with a practice pad too?
Yeah, it sat on top of the drum head.
Yeah.
And but it would all fit in that one little case, so you could carry it to school, you know what I mean? So that's what I started on, snare drum. But like even with that, I was pissed. I was like, Peter Criss doesn't play one drum. Like I've never seen him in a picture playing one drum. Never ever.
When do we move this up to drum kit, right?
Yeah, I was on my parents like from day one. I'm like, I'll accept this snare drum, and I'm gonna learn how to play it in the setting at school that they want me to play it in. But you need to understand, like, I'm on a crash course with doing what Peter Criss is doing. So like, my parents basically drew the line and said, we're not going to buy you a drum set. My mom might tell the story a little bit differently, but in my mind, they weren't going to buy me a drum set. So I went and got a job and washing dishes at Sign of the Beef Carver. And I think Colin even worked with me for a while there. And I saved up $350, and I went to Sasko's Drum Shop on 9 Mile Road. It was on 8 and Van Dyke, I think, at that point. Went down there, talked to Gloria, and I walked out of there with a yellow CB700, which is probably like the ugliest color to get for a drum set. I don't know, like Bill Bruford played yellow drums, and that's kind of cool.
I was just going to say, for Three of a Perfect Pair, yellow was everything. Tony Levin had a yellow Stingray and everything. Yeah, you're right. Other than that,
I don't think so. I don't mind yellow drums now. I see them now and they look cool to me, but like they're not, like at the time they weren't the sexiest, right? Like I was like, all right, Peter Criss definitely doesn't play yellow drums, but here's the thing. This is all I can afford. So it was either I get this yellow drum set or I didn't get a drum set. So anyhow, I got the drum set and started playing along to Kiss songs, and the rest is history.
There you go.
And ever since then, I go to every job interview dressed as Peter Criss, because you're supposed to dress for the job that you want, Aaron.
Hell yeah.
True.
Listen to that, everybody. In 2024, career advice from Greg Maston. Dress for the job you want. Peter Criss.
Yeah. I knew that your answer would be Peter Criss, and I didn't think you'd even pick anybody else, because it's cool to have such a laser focus like that. Like that, I envy that in a way, because my whole thing was so muddled, and I didn't have like the wherewithal to go get a job like you did. Like, that's amazing.
Drums were not an easy instrument for family members or neighbors, back when I was learning drums,
Right.
because there was no such thing as electronic or low volume cymbals or low volume heads. None of that stuff existed.
Right on. Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome.
It was full force or nothing.
Right. All or nothing.
Right on. Good pick, man. Good pick. And it makes complete sense. And you're right. Probably everybody would make that call for you, for sure.
Mine's the most boring answer, probably. I think Steve's.
No, I don't think so, because check this out. Tell everybody really quickly about that gatefold photo, too, that you would like study.
Alive 2.
Yeah,
Alive
exactly.
2 had the best gatefold of any album I've ever seen in my life. To this day, I don't think it's been topped.
Yeah, had all of them tearing it up, including Peter Criss up there on the riser.
Yeah,
I know. Could anything be cooler than be sitting on top of that riser with all that shit blowing up around you? Like, that had to be the ultimate, right?
Right.
Oh yeah, man, for sure.
Absolutely. All right, Steve, you're up.
All right. Well, I did a similar thing that you did, Aaron, is I kind of broke it down into different eras, because for me, there would be the artists that made me realize about the instrument and go, oh, I could pick that up. I think I could do that, and then there's later on, not necessarily different, because some of the original artists did shape the way that I play or think about playing, not just to play, but later on, there was more artists that informed me of all the things or more things that are possible on a bass guitar, because I'm going to focus on bass guitar maybe a little bit more, even though I play keyboards in Voyager 3, but I'm originally a bassist. So I kind of play keyboards because I like the sounds they make. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I have some influences of keyboard players. Rick Wakeman would be one, I guess. And probably John Carpenter would be one, I guess. But those guys he doesn't really play. He plays like I play, not like a trained pianist. But Herbie Hancock would be one where I listen to him and be like, oh my God, this is incredible. Chick Corea. But that's all more recent, because I've only been playing keyboards since Voyager 3 has been a band. Before that, I was a bassist ever since, high school, I guess, or junior high. But anyway, artists that made me aware of the bass, or that made me want to pick it up and play it, would be Adam Clayton from U2. Even to this day, I love the choices he does over the edges stuff. Really tasty stuff. It's not overcomplicated. It serves the song perfectly, and it's just tasty and right there. And then to mix with you, Aaron, Klaus Fluoride was a bassist that I was like, man, this is awesome. And you're right.
From Dead Kennedys.
From Dead Kennedys, yep. East Bay Ray's guitar stuff is a little bit out there. Not so much nowadays, because we're more musically educated than we were when we were 13 or 14 years old. But back then, I didn't know what he was doing. The Echoplex, and it's very high-endy, not a lot of low end in the guitar, so it's very jangly. And I was like, I don't know what he's doing. It sounds cool, but I can hear that bass. So I was drawn to the bass in Dead Kennedys. And then probably because of the third person, probably because of my playing bass in school. Like, I played bass in my high school jazz band, and was involved in band playing saxophone as well. So kind of had a little bit of that, for lack of a better term, sort of the academic side of music a little bit back then. So there was a little bit more sophisticated stuff floating around because it was like music education, not just rocking out to a band. Okay, so third bassist that made me aware of the bass in big time. And I had the VHS, the famous VHS. Once I say the name, you'll go like, oh yeah, most of you probably have seen that or know of it, who know who this person is. But Jaco Pastorius, who was the bassist in Weather Report. And he had a couple of solo albums, and then he went on to play bass with Joni Mitchell as well in later years before he passed away. If you know who Jaco Pastorius is, you know why he's so inspiring and influential. He played the bass very originally for that time. He played a electric fretless, which at that time was very rare. Nowadays, it's much more common, I would say. And he also did harmonic stuff. So like kind of like a guitarist would do pinch harmonics. Well, he did a version of that on a non-distorted bass, and it just makes these beautiful overtones. He was able to compose some really fantastic stuff. So that was my original cluster for wanting to pick up a bass and play a bass. Now, a little bit later on, maybe 5, 6, 7 years later on, when I started discovering more types of music, when Death Human came out and I heard what Steve DiGiorgio was doing on a fretless bass behind death metal, blew my mind. I didn't know that was allowed to do that, basically, especially the drums too. So you have this jazz fusion-y stuff mixed with death metal, and I've been a fan ever since. That's absolutely incredible. Another bassist that really later on shaped the way that I thought about playing bass back in the 90s would be Sergio Vega from Quicksand, and he was also in Deftones for a kind of a long stint. He's no longer in Deftones, but he's still in Quicksand. Love the way he plays bass. To be honest with you, he kind of is of the Adam Clayton school sometimes, some of the choices that he does, but then he uses more effects, Sergio does, and some more bells and whistles and stuff. And then a third influence that I have is not a bass player. He's a guitar player, but he influenced me to think outside what you thought you knew and break that and don't do what you did just for the sake of thinking about something new and getting into a new headspace and refreshing yourself and things like that. And this thought came to me again recently because I remember that when Forge stopped being a band and when we were going to form our next band, Decibuilt, I completely flipped the script. And partly because of this influences like mind or thought process or like his rules to living, so to speak, not just music, even everything. But I went from playing a fretted Stingray with a pick to a Fender Jazz fretless with fingers. So, I mean, you really can't get that much sonically different. And that was a purposeful choice to try to make it different and step out of what I was doing and try to do something new. So that the influence of that is Robert Fripp, 100%. He's just an innovator in everything that he does. He approaches music like nobody else that I've ever seen or been a fan of or appreciate. And he just makes you think about things differently. He even plays what's called the new standard tuning. He doesn't even play his guitar. He hasn't done this since the late 70s or early 80s. He hasn't played standard tuning. He made up a new tuning for a guitar, and he actually teaches that tuning to guitarists around the world. And it's a thing. That's how he plays that. I don't know by heart what the tuning is. You can look it up. But that's what I'm saying. Robert Fripp is just he might be a visitor from another dimension. I don't know, because he's just so innovative. But yeah, so that's a huge influence on not directly any instrument, but a thought process or a frame of mind, basically.
Nice.
So that's what I got now, and I'm glad I was able to cover some keyboard players too. Vangelis for sure would be one that I've always loved what he does, because I was listening to like the Blade Runner soundtrack and Chariots of Fire when I was a little kid, and just loving, not knowing what the hell that was at all. Didn't even know what a synthesizer was, but just like, how does this sound like this? I didn't know what it was, but it stuck with me this whole time, and now I do know what it is.
Yeah. Okay, for this edition of Collecting Cool Stuff, who's up? Greg is up.
Greg is up.
It's finally my turn. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna this is a timely one. Steve will like this because a lot of times Steve is looking for content that is like hitting right when things come out. So I'm ticking all the boxes with Steve tonight. So you ready for this? I'm gonna slowly raise it into the frame.
Oh man. The Dawn of the Dead.
Nice.
The ancillary music, the stuff that George Romero preferred over Goblin, believe it or not. He still used Goblin in the final cut.
So there's a bit of a tradition now with me around Christmas and Dawn of the Dead, completely by accident. Because if you remember, a few years back, Ange worked with Jeffy Verity and got me this OG copy of the Goblin score to Dawn of the Dead. So that was Christmas a few years ago. And then fast forward to Christmas this year, and Waxwork Records comes out with this, which is, like Steve said, all the DeWolf library cues for Dawn of the Dead. And I mean,
look at that artwork. It's incredible.
I know. You talk about deluxe packaging. There are three vinyl LPs included in this. So it was a little rich for my blood. So everybody was asking me for ideas for Christmas, and I'm like, well, this Dawn of the Dead record came out. If anybody's really looking to like make my Christmas magical.
Hint, hint.
So anyways, I got lucky. So I got a copy of it. It comes with a book, which also has really good artwork. That would look great on a t-shirt, right? If it's not a t-shirt already. So you got this book with all this. I'm going to do this like an unboxing almost. It's got like this really, I haven't even read all of it, but there's a lot of like stuff to read. So Aaron will love that. He'll blow through it in 5 minutes. So you get the 3 records. It comes in this thing has so much good artwork. It's like every time you open it, it gets better.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then if you open it up all the way, you get the entire.
Wow.
And then I think you get Tom Savini. Isn't it Tom Savini on the back? It's got to be him.
Yep, it sure is. Yep.
So you get Tom Savini, that scene on the back. And then, I can't really show this off and brag about it without showing you the actual color of the vinyl. So you get booger green is what I call it.
Looking great.
And then there's I don't know if this is the second or the third. Oh, I guess this would be the second record. So that's like an orange, and it's got like some swirl to it. You probably can't see it. Pick it up
I can see that
in the video. And then the most impressive one, I think, is this one in terms of like the vinyl looking cool. So the third one is purple, and it's got like a definite like swirl pattern in there. So yeah, and they all got like alternate artwork on the back that's really cool too. So
that third record looks like a bowling ball I once owned.
Nice.
Yeah, it does look like a bowling ball. I won't argue with that. So anyways, I obviously had a stellar Christmas by getting my hands on one of these, and I know it's sold out now, so I'm particularly happy to have it. I know, Steve, you're waiting for yours to show up.
Yes, so mine is on the way. I picked up the
spoiler alert.
They did such a good job with that. Waxwork always does. Their releases are just top notch for sure.
So I am going to mention that we love this movie collectively as a band. So once I realized that I got this, I started reading about it, and I did find out that there are some people saying that this is not all of the DeWolf cues. They're saying that it was truncated. Now, I don't understand how you could have 3 LPs full of music and it not be everything. But maybe there's somebody in our audience that listens to this that can educate us on what might have been left out or why it's not complete.
What's missing, and if there's anything missing, is it out there somewhere to hear?
Exactly. Yeah.
Is it even worth it if it wasn't included on there? Like, Is it just a one note thing or something?
Well, it just depends if you're a purist. A lot of people want, they're saying, well, I can only speak for what I read. Some people were saying it's, yet another money grab, and it's still not the full thing, like it's just a way to say that it is, but it isn't. So I'm not that cynical. I think
in my opinion, even if that's not 100% of all the tracks, that is not a money grab in Waxwork defense. That thing right there is a work of beauty that was very expensive to produce. That's a full-size press sheet to do that 3-panel LP jacket. That's big time expense. So
Steve, they spared no expense. Most people if you go on Waxwork's site, most soundtracks are going to be 35 to 40 on there, right? I mean, that even a single LP is going to be 35, right? So this had 3 records plus all this amazing art and 3 different color vinyl for $60. I mean, really, when it comes down to it, I don't think they could have charged $100 for this.
Right.
They could have charged more for sure. And anybody that's obsessed with Dawn of the Dead the way we are probably would have paid it.
All right. Well, we're going to come to our final topic of the night. Since this is the first episode of 2024, we want to take one last look back to 2023 and discuss and share our top 3 albums of 2023 and top 3 films of 2023. Lots to choose from. Lots of stuff came out. I know we all had some favorites, and I actually personally hit the theater more last year than I have in a while. So I got to see some of those in the theater too. So very cool stuff. I guess I'll go first on this one. Why not? I always push it off on you two usually. So I'll mention some stuff. I'll start with music. Okay. So I have a safety pick, and I'll tell you why. Because one of them could be questionable, and Aaron might call me out on it for it not being accurate. So, but
is it good stuff that came out 20 years ago, but it was a re-release this year?
That's it.
I'll beat
you up.
Wait, but what if it's a remix?
Yeah, he's not going to allow that.
It was
Steve,
remixed,
you know that
too.
It was what?
Remixed too.
No, that doesn't count.
Damn it. Okay, well then,
not unless it was re-recorded. Go ahead, Steve. You pick whatever the fuck you want to pick, man.
All right.
You my man. You my cousin.
All right.
You pick what you want to pick.
All right, well, then that means I'm going to list 4 then, because I want to leave anything out.
Oh my God.
So the first one.
Now you've overstepped.
Right. The first one is Cynic Refocus. It came out on June 9th, 2023. And it's Focus remixed. And it sounds
ridiculous.
Really good, man. And I saw the tour at the Sanctuary the day after my birthday, June 30th this year. Fantastic show. And so it's on my list. You may say it doesn't count, but that's why I got 3 more to back it up. Next one.
Every rule. Go ahead.
Hey, I make them up, then I break them.
Right.
Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse by Daniel Pemberton, the soundtrack to that film. So good. Such a ridiculously good film score. It's got all kinds of elements, hip-hop elements, funk, synth stuff, guitar stuff, vocal stuff. It's everything. Seriously. It's out on vinyl. It's streaming. Check it out. Tell me what you think. Here's one too that I got reminded of how much I love this band, and lo and behold, they put a new record out last year, and I got to hear a few songs of it at their concert that I saw. But the Dead Milkmen, Quaker City Quiet Pills, favorite track. Grandpa's not a racist, but he voted for one.
Yes.
First track on the record. I'm like, oh my God, it's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
And then
they never fail.
Oh.
I know, man. They have their finger right on the pulse still all the time later, and they didn't lose any pep or anything live. They still tore it up live in Hamtramck this year. Labor Day Festival, they headlined it, and it was just so good. I hadn't seen the Dead Milkmen since they were at the Majestic for Not Richard But Dick tour in '95, I think, and then they broke up. And I did see him at the Fun Fest when they reunited in Austin, Texas. I did fly out there for that, but I hadn't seen them in Detroit since the Majestic way back. And then lastly, because I knew Aaron would give me some shit about that Cynic pick. So how badass is Godflesh Purge? I mean, that's a killer record. And from the last episode 31, everybody knows we got to see Godflesh at El Club. And we got that amazing Mexican food dinner with the drinks that we talked about, all that stuff. Anyway, Godflesh record, fantastic. And it sounded great live too, man. They nailed it. Okay, now films. There's another questionable one in here, guys. I don't know. I just got to say it. I don't have an alternate for this.
It came out in 82, but I didn't see it until this year.
No, not quite that. Hold on.
All right.
I think the only film that could get away with that, maybe like in 2021, was New York Ninja.
Right.
Yeah.
Just Steve, just know you're on thin ice here, buddy.
I know, man.
Yeah, we're watching you closely. I can't wait to hear what this is.
It's the beginning of 2024, and I'm already fucking up. Stop fucking up.
Well, Steve, the rules are simple. I mean, you sort of wrote this itinerary.
No, I wrote it.
Oh, Aaron wrote it. That's why we're having so much. That's why Steve and I are having so much trouble, because Aaron was dictating.
No, I think that this one will qualify. I'll explain myself. Don't worry.
All right, here we go.
And I'll list this one. I'll list that one last.
I'm all ears. Come on, hit me.
One of my top films this year was Leave the World Behind. It was a Netflix production, I believe, and awesome film. I don't want to tell anybody anything. I think this is one of those films where you don't need to watch a trailer. You don't need to know anything. Just watch the film and take it in. Samuel Esmail was the director. Music by Mac Quayle. Music was great. Everything was great. Kevin Bacon's in it. You know, that's not a spoiler. I think it's on the poster. Fantastic. Second,
I actually do have Netflix again, so I will watch it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I recommend
Aaron, give me your password, man.
Aaron,
yo,
you got that password I need?
Yo, give me the information.
Yeah, Aaron, don't be stingy.
Now, previously mentioned, because of the soundtrack, I also have to put Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse as one of my favorite films of last year. And we talked about it on a previous episode. I never even saw the first one. I didn't even know about it, really. Didn't know what it was about. Didn't care to watch it. I was kind of superheroed out for a while. But my kids wanted to see it because it was animated. And I'm like, I'll take you to see it. No problem. So I sat there thinking, it can't be bad. So I'm going to check it out and watch it. And I was blown away, especially that first sequence when it was a little bit more roughly animated. And before the credits hit, that little sequence right there, I was on the edge of my seat and the music went with it just perfectly. And then the whole film was totally kick-ass. So recommend that one. All that stuff's streaming now. And I watched them out of order. Like I said, I saw the second one first, then went back and watched the first one. Loved it. And that's got 3 directors, Joaquin Dos Santos, Kemp Powers, and Justin Thompson. Music by Daniel Pemberton, as previously mentioned. Killer film. Now, here's my third one that could be questionable. Now, it came out in Australia. It's an Australian production. And it was released there in 2022, but it hit Netflix in 2023, which is where most people could see it, unless you lived.
I'm going to let that go. I'm going to let that slide. I'm good with it.
Oh, thank goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
Aaron says to proceed, Steve.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you guys see Talk to Me? Did both of you see that or not?
Oh, I've heard of it.
Oh man, killer. You know, every once in a while, like, I'll give you an example of something. The movie's not like this movie, but the concept of what I'm trying to convey is It Follows, where you see this movie and you're like, oh, holy shit, that dude just made up a new thing, basically, like a new lore or whatever you want to say. I think Talk to Me did pretty good job of that too. They kind of created like a new pocket of what you can do. Very cool film. I think there's a brother duo directed that. Danny and Michael Philippou, I think is how you say their name. And then Cornell Witchcheck did the music, and music's really creepy because of the topic of this film. I think the music really lends itself to that and helps push that kind of mojo that Talk to Me has. I don't want to spoil that either. I think if you go into this not knowing anything, you'll be better off. But that's my 3 films for 2023. All right, who's going next? You gotta flip a coin or something.
You go ahead, Greg.
All right. Well, I'll try to keep mine pretty brief. So I'll start with movies.
Peter.
What?
Peter Chris.
Peter Chris. Done. No.
That's great.
Movies. I didn't. I don't get to. I think I've said this on the podcast before, but I don't get to watch a lot of adult movies like in the theaters or whatever. So like I just don't have a ton of free time. I'm always watching these kids movies.
Yeah.
I've seen every kids movie, and none of those made the list. Like I do sort of agree with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. That's the best of the kids movies for sure.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. But in terms of movies that I saw in the theater or had time to watch on my own at home, I have 3. So, Evil Dead Rise. Funny story about that.
Yeah, I'm good.
It was our wedding anniversary, and Ange picked where we went to eat, so I got to pick the movie, and I picked Evil Dead Rise, and she's like, "This is like," her review was, "This is obvious. This is honestly the bloodiest movie I've ever seen. Like, there is so much blood."
Hey, she's not wrong, right?
So I get a kick out of the fact that I subjected her to that on our not on our honeymoon, on our anniversary. So, Evil Dead Rise, that was probably the best experience. I really like Knock at the Cabin. I know a lot of people are down on M. Night Shyamalan, but like I don't know if you guys saw Knock at the Cabin.
It was great. And I read the book too, and it was like very faithful to the book.
Yeah. So what I'll say about that movie is it falls into that category of movies that are tough to watch as a parent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like I was explaining this to our friend Ian the other day. Like him and I were talking about Poltergeist, because I just tend to talk about Poltergeist a lot. And I said, Poltergeist hit me different when I first saw it than it does now, because now the true horror of that movie to me is the idea of your child being lost and you can't get to them. That's the horrifying part of that movie to me now. But when I watched it as a kid, I was like, well, it's the creepy clown, and it's some of the more obvious things, and then the subtle aspect. Like I couldn't relate to the parent part of it until you sort of get into that headspace. So Knock at the Cabin is sort of plays on that. Like I won't say much about it other than that, but I thought it was really well done, and I kind of give M. Night Shyamalan a pass, man. Like I feel like he's done enough good movies that I was willing to check it out, and I'm glad I did. So those are the first 2, and then Steve already mentioned Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I was gonna kind of say that one, but I'll tell you one that I watched recently that I didn't think I was gonna like as much as I did. So I'm gonna mention it for that reason alone. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I had already seen the first 2 and I liked them. But like Steve, I'm kind of burnt out on the superhero movies right now. And even though like Guardians of the Galaxy appeals to my sensibilities, because I like how it's like very tongue in cheek, and like the heroes are kind of, they don't look like heroes necessarily. It's a raccoon, a tree, and all other kinds of like weird, people that you wouldn't consider to be heroes. But and then when I heard that it was sort of like all based on the raccoon this time, I was like, all right, is this going to be any good? But I'll tell you what, man, I sat through it, and I actually think it might be one of my favorites, because I feel like the characters were developed like 100% more in the third one than the first 2.
Okay.
And I don't know, it just stuck out to me. I don't think it's like the best movie ever made, but it was one that I was surprised by. Yeah, and it was really cool to see like the backstory of Rocket. You know what I mean? Like I think that I think that's what I mean. Like, so you realize there's so much more to him than you thought there was. Because like my son loves Rocket because in the first movie or first two movies, you give Rocket guns and he just goes crazy. So my son loves that, right? Like he just shoots everybody.
Right.
You know, and he loves how he's a smartass and things like that. But like this movie really sort of goes into why he's like that. So I don't know. I was pleasantly surprised by it. So that was sort of my honorable mention. But I'm going to use it as my third one since Steve already mentioned Spider-Verse.
Gotcha.
All right, for music, I'm proud. You know, one of these might get me in trouble, but I think Aaron will give me a pass because they actually re-recorded it. So number one, Cavalera Conspiracy. I haven't been more surprised by a re-recording than I was by these guys, man. They went in and redid Morbid Visions and Bestial Devastation, and I can't even get my head around how they did it, how they pulled it off.
Yeah,
and it sounds
so
raw
good.
still.
They're so good.
It sounds it retained the sound of the originals, but it made it so that you could listen to them. And it's like it brought it into the modern era of production a little bit, but retained some of that gritty, like underground sound of those first couple of records. And I think Jeffy Verdi will agree with me. Like I think I saw it on his top 10 list. So I was blown away that those guys were able to pull that rabbit out of the hat and make it happen.
Yeah.
So I mention them both because they redid them both and they're both equally good.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a Sepultura fan, man, don't sleep on that Cavalera Conspiracy. That stuff, they nailed it.
Yeah, for sure.
So good.
Then I'm going to go completely different end of the spectrum. Steve Roach came out with an album this year called Sanctuary of Desire, and it's a straight up ambient record.
Yeah.
So if you're not into ambient, you probably won't like it. But I think I mentioned on here a while back, I went down a Steve Roach rabbit hole. So he came out with a new record this year, and I was all about it. I think I mentioned there was a metal band that did an ambient record.
Yeah, Blood
What was
Incantation.
that band? Yeah, Blood Incantation. Yeah, so like I have a history of liking that kind of stuff. So if ambient ain't your thing, you're probably not going to like this newest Steve Roach either. But for me, that was a awesome thing to get a new record out of him. And then my number 3, which should have probably been my number 1, is the Maestro put out a record this year. So anytime John Williams puts out a new soundtrack, it's going to be on my best of 2023. And we got Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And by the way, he rescinded his retirement. He said he's open to projects, so we might even get another one out of him. Dude's in his 90s, man.
Can't wait if that happens, man. Yeah, it's going to be great.
Fucking John Williams. He's going to be in my top 3.
Right.
So.
Good point.
All right.
Good picks, man. This is an episode of good picks.
Yes. Well, I'll go with music first. For music, it was a good year. Lots of bands from the 90s that are still making music today. So
careful, Aaron. You're talking about 90s. Steve, can we get a check on this?
Well, if it's a new record.
New records.
Yeah.
All right. I just want to make sure it's not a re-recording or anything, right, Aaron?
No re-recording, no nothing. None of that stuff.
Hey, just so everybody knows, V3Cast has tight officiating.
Officiating.
Yeah.
We keep each other in check.
But I'll get to those old school bands. But the first one, I would say, the new Baroness album, Stone, is just everything I could hope for. There was a weird thing. I don't know if it's me or if it's the bands. Who can ever say? But a bunch of the bands I really love, their second most recent album, like from a couple of years ago, were lackluster to me. Baroness, their Gray and Gold, was my least favorite of theirs, and it's still good. It's still got good songs on it. But when I was getting so used to Baroness just hitting 10 out of 10s on all these albums, Gray and Gold didn't do it for me.
Wait,
but I knew they'd come back hard.
Are you saying the previous Baroness albums were all 10 out of 10?
Yeah, Until
Okay.
Gray and Gold.
Right. Okay, gotcha.
But then I knew they'd come back hard, just like Clutch did last year, just like Ghost did. There's been a bunch of bands who had disappointed me and then came back with some serious stuff. So Baroness Stone came out in September, and I was just so happy because it was just perfect. And then I got to see them like last month or whatever, a couple months ago, and see them do a bunch of the stuff from the album, and it's great. It's everything I could hope for in a Baroness album. Another one, my second one, is a band called Eve's Tumor. It's kind of like a guy named Eve's Tumor, but he has his backing band with him. And it's kind of a mix between like R&B, alternative hip hop, sort of Massive Attack, but it's also alternative. So it's almost
you
like
sent me a link to him a while back, and that one track was great.
It's really trippy and weird, kind of almost like Prince meets David Bowie. It's just really cool stuff. The album came out in March, and the cool thing about that is my friend John sent me a link to the video and said, check this out. And I started watching it, and I was like, oh my God, this is really good. And then I looked him up on YouTube, and I realized that I had watched some other videos of his like months before, but I didn't really stick with it. Okay. So then that morning that John sent me that link, I started watching like an hour of Eve's Tumor videos. And then I started watching a concert that they did out at some festival in Germany or something. And, with like, just a million people in the crowd, those festivals.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so I'm like, this is just amazing. This is like exactly what I wanted to hear. That day it just hit me, and I was like, I wonder if they're coming to town. You go and look up a new band, right, that you're just getting hip to, and you usually find out that they were in town last week and you missed it. Yeah. Well, this was March, and I found out they were coming in April to the Majestic, and I texted John, we're going. I told Amy, we're going to this show. So that day I bought the ticket. So in one day I was basically introduced to the band, and then watched a bunch of videos, bought tickets to the shows. Nothing could be more perfect.
Yeah, that's how it's supposed to work, right?
Yeah. And the album has a crazy title. It's Praise the Lord Who Chews But Does Not Consume, basically. It's like kind of a really long title. Yeah. Great stuff. They have like 4 or 5 albums, and they're all really good, really weird, trippy stuff. For my third pick, that was me trying to decide between Obituary, Godflesh, Foo Fighters, Prong, Helmet, right? All this 90s stuff where these people have been hitting hard this year. And it's really tough. I think I'm going with Prong, State of Emergency. Yeah, I think it's just pretty perfect. Like I said with Baroness, is everything you could want from Prong.
I've been streaming it. It's good for sure.
Yeah, heavy as hell, and I think it gets better as it goes. Like I think the second half of the album is even better than the first. I do want to give an honorable mention, though, to Helmet. Yeah, and so the new Helmet is...
It's definitely got a bigger palette.
What's that?
It has a bigger palette than recent Helmet, for sure.
You're damn right it does. Damn right it does, Steve. They even put a song, the last song on the album is just to prove to Steve that they do have that Page has jazz influences and a jazz background, because the last song is just a jazz song. And so that was the surprise of the year for me, because I like Helmet. I haven't been dissing them like Steve does and like Peter Meng, but and even the most recent album from a few years ago I thought was really cool. This is way better than that, though, and it's called Left, the new Helmet album, and yeah, I think it's awesome. So I kind of cheated and did 4 picks there, but
that's all right. In 2024,
yeah,
we're gonna shake it up. Shake it
up, man. My movie picks. I was very fortunate that I saw a lot of movies this year. Like I've been getting my movie game back on track, and a lot of movies in the theater. And not all superhero movies, and a lot of movies that I didn't get to see in the theater, I watched as soon as I could on streaming, or bought them on Blu-ray when they came out. So I will say that way back towards the beginning of the year, John Wick 4 was immensely satisfying. I love the John Wick series. I went into part 3 thinking that they were going to kill him, that he was going to die in part 3, and that would be it. It would just be a trilogy. So my jaw was on the floor when part 3 ended the way it did, and he didn't die. And so I was immediately looking forward to part 4, and part 4 was just I don't know if I could ever pick a favorite John Wick movie. All 4 of them are great. And I thought that it rounded out the story so well and brought such amazing, satisfying closure to the story, and just so deep, so great. John Wick 4. Did you guys see it at all? Have you seen those movies?
I think I've seen all the John Wick movies.
I think I've seen the first 2, and I do like them for sure.
Yeah.
What's not to like?
Right.
That's a dude's movie right there.
Dude's movie. Speaking of dudes movies, my second pick is Barbie. It was actually unbelievably amazing.
It was a good movie.
It was great. That was not on my radar. I didn't grow up playing with Barbie. I didn't have any interest in Barbie. And so I thought, well, I'm glad they're making this for the people who like Barbie. That's not me, so they can have fun. I was glad it was making a ton of money along with Oppenheimer. I thought that's the best thing that can happen to cinema, is that people are going out to the movie theater to see Barbie and Oppenheimer, 2 polar opposite movies. And they're both making a ton of money and keeping sort of cinema afloat, right? And covering all this different ground. So, but I wasn't into Barbie at all, and I wasn't going to see it until my wife told me, no, you really should see it. It's amazing. You'll love it. There's so many great references and great things that you'll actually like in it. And I saw it and I thought, oh my God, this movie is perfect. It's perfect. It's funny. It's deep. It is great and funny on about 50 different levels all at the same time. It's not just as in like, I thought it would be more like the Lego movie, where it's just jokes and references and all that stuff and poking fun at all these things. And it does have a lot of that, but it has a lot more to it than that. It has things, it doesn't just appeal to women. It appeals to anybody who likes good movies, good stories, good comedy, and good movies about commentary about how people treat each other, about how men and women treat each other and how they interact, and kind of checking everybody on, like, are you too much like this? Or are you, do you have some balance in your life? Are you, how much of these bad behaviors do you see in yourself? If you see too much, you should try to tip the scales a little bit more towards, being like a good person or a considerate person or whatever. Anyway, Barbie is great. But my number one pick of the whole year, easily by far.
Wait a minute.
No,
is this 4 now?
No, that was 2 movies.
Wait, John
Wick, Barbie.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Hey, remember, we're keeping an eye on each other. Go ahead.
Yeah. Not this. I'm being very by the book on this one.
All right.
My number one movie of the year is Godzilla -1. Nothing really comes close. That is definitely the best Godzilla movie I've ever seen. It is different from any Godzilla movie I've ever seen. The closest you could come is like the original 1954 Godzilla. What this movie does is it doesn't make Godzilla sympathetic. It doesn't make Godzilla a hero. It doesn't start Godzilla off as a villain and then somewhere in the middle turn them into a hero where you're rooting for Godzilla. The whole time you see Godzilla, you're terrified. It's the only Godzilla movie I've ever seen where you want Godzilla to die the whole time. You're like, just leave these people alone. They just got out of a war where they got bombed twice with atom bombs. And then Godzilla just comes and starts destroying even more, killing even more people with atomic energy that they're digging themselves out of the rubble still. And Godzilla is just decimating Japan again. Leave these people alone. And so you want Godzilla to eat it. And it's, you care. This is also the the first Godzilla movie where I've really, really cared about the people. There are some of the Godzilla movies where they do a decent job of making you care about the people, and most of them don't. Most of them, you just don't want them on screen and you just want to see the monsters.
Yeah.
This one, you actually care about the people and you're rooting for them and you just want them to have some kind of peace and victory. So for all those reasons, for the minuscule budget that they did compared to any Hollywood movie, a $15 million movie, which they would make in Hollywood, they would make for a movie with two people in a restaurant talking the whole time, would be more than a $15 million budget. And somehow they were able to make this movie in Japan. You don't see any of the seams. You don't see anything low budget about the movie. It's just a devastating movie. It's visceral and heavy hitting, and easily my top movie of the year. I hope it wins some sort of Oscars. I know they don't really like to honor genre movies at the Oscars too much, but maybe in the foreign category, maybe it can win Best Picture. Whatever they can throw at it, it deserves it, and it deserves to be praised for its sort of non-wasteful movie making a low budget movie into such a huge impact. And I'm glad it's getting all this attention and playing all over the world and getting the praise it deserves. So yeah, that's my topic.
Hyped for that because I knew that it had to be good because people posted about it and you kind of get the sense like, holy shit, this is probably pretty good. But you just threw it over the top, and now I can't wait to see it. Thank you. Thank you for selling me, for like nailing that sale. You get coffee now. Close the deal.
Thank you.
The two most surprising things that came out of Aaron's mouth tonight was Huey Lewis in the news. That was number one. And then Barbie.
Right.
Like who had those on their bingo card for Aaron?
I did not.
Yeah.
Aaron really surprised me tonight. I've known you a long time, and you surprised me tonight. You are a multifaceted individual.
Aaron's very sophisticated.
No, I just had to get over myself a little bit and be open-minded to that movie. And I was like, Jesus, man. I mean, it's just perfect. By the way, Margot Robbie deserves an Oscar. What's the dude? Ryan Gosling deserves an Oscar. Greta Gerwig deserves an Oscar for Best Director for Barbie. It was not just fluff. That's what surprised me. It was pretty heavy. It was great.
Right on. Well,
there you have it.
With that being said, everybody, leave us a comment on what your top 3 films and albums were for 2023, because we can't see everything, so we want to hear from you to give us some extra things to check out when we have time. And it's all about everybody sharing all their stuff and discovering new cool stuff for sure. And thanks, Greg, for mentioning the Cavalera Conspiracy redos of those Sepultura albums. Those are incredible. I've been streaming those a lot since they came out in the summertime, right? It's like they came out in like July or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
it came out right near when we played the Motor City Nightmares.
Yeah.
That was when Greg played it for us, and we were like, "Oh my god!"
I know, man. Like,
it's pissed, man.
Because it couldn't be too good. Like, just for example, it couldn't sound like an Arch Enemy record because that just is not supposed to sound like that. They kept it like a little bit messy, but not. It's a really weird tightrope they walked on that.
Yeah, they walked a fine line, man.
Yeah, seriously.
They don't sound unlike the original. They don't sound unlike the originals. They just sound significantly better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to explain it.
Right.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah,
I can't explain it.
On whatever streaming platform you guys listen to stuff on, check out the ones we mentioned, and like I said before, post your favorites of last year. And we're gonna close out this episode. Thank you for listening. And if you like a band that does a podcast, that's us, Voyager 3. Give us a subscribe, a like, and a share, all that kind of good stuff. It helps us out. And until next time on V3Cast, we will see you soon.